this one's gonna be a little bit different. This is actually going to be the 1-year update to show where we've gotten on this Project Defiance here. And everything's kind of taken a lot longer than originally anticipated, and that's just how it works. That's just part of the game, and honestly, that's what makes these things what they are in the end. So I'm gonna take a little walk around and show the progress that we've gotten over the last year. So let's go take a look. All right, well, after 1 year, here she is. I'll kind of start off at the front. This is kind of where I started the whole build series, was this Izzy Fab engine cage. I know it's pretty well covered up at this point, but this came out awesome. It was a huge time savings just to be able to buy everything pre-cut, pre-bent, and it just made it way easier to get it absolutely identical from one side to the other and zero it out and have everything absolutely perfect. So thank you to Izzy for making products like that, because it's a huge time saver. Now with that, one of the big things we'll get to is this race kit right here. So for those who started watching the channel from the very beginning, you'll know that I did originally have a Dirt King race kit up here. I decided to do the upgrade to the Izzy Fab race kit. So it just made a lot of sense with everything being Izzy Fab from front to rear to kind of make everything speak the same language and go Izzy Fab for the kit up front. On top of that, I really wasn't thrilled with the install that I had on the Dirt King kit, and I just wanted everything to be kept up with the same caliber of the rest of the build that we have going on. So other reasons I decided to go with the Izzy Fab kit is I really wanted something that bumped off of the upper. Not to say that you couldn't do it with the Dirt King kit, it's just the Dirt King kit is mostly designed for bumping off the lower, which saves a massive amount of time. It's a much easier install, but instead it turns the top 5-6 inches of suspension travel into being your bump zone, while having it off of the upper strikes it with, for one, more leverage at the very end of the arm, and also only makes the top maybe 2 inches of actual wheel travel being in your bump zone, which allows your shocks to do more of the talking for you, and the bump zone is more of a last-ditch effort to stop the suspension travel on hard hits. So one of the other big reasons that I went to the Izzy Fab kit is because of this shock location here. So with the Izzy Fab kit, it's actually designed around being able to fit a 4.0 shock. There is one other kit that a lot of people talk about that is able to fit a 4.0 shock, but on top of that, that kit is designed around a performance series shock, and this one actually, you'll notice the bypass mounting position is slightly higher than that because it's a performance series coilover and it will be a race series bypass position here. So with that, with the other kits that you are able to run a 4.0, you start limiting your suspension travel because the collapse and extended lengths are different. So having a kit that is designed from being off the shelf able to run a 4.0, I felt like was also a massive advantage. The other thing we did with this kit is we went through and I plated everything on the frame with 120 wall chromoly, and that just makes the chassis a lot more rigid, and I'm just super stoked with how it looks because the stock frame has all these little holes in it, and having everything flat after it's all painted or coated, it's gonna look awesome. So the other reason that I do like the Izzy Fab kit, and I guess this is kind of one of the last major things, is you're able to get it to where it's tabbed out for Wilwood brakes. So being able to have it tabbed for Wilwood brakes means you don't have to buy the whole $1,800 Aero 6 conversion kit. It just comes ready where you just buy the not coilovers, you buy the calipers and it's just ready to go. So that was another huge reason that I felt like was a big selling point on this kit here. And also the J-arm just looks freaking awesome. So the other thing that we bought was these Camburg 2.0 hubs. All right, and while we're on the topic of the front of the truck right here, you can see this is the core support mount that I did in one of my earlier episodes. It's all final welded, and I got the frame all capped off right there. And then also, a lot of people ask me some questions on this Crossmember. For one, it's made by Izzy Fab, and I guess the biggest question was why? And it has multiple advantages. For one, you're changing out the stock metal over to all chromoly TIG welded. It's just gonna be a way stronger support for your lower control arms there. And then also one of the main things is it actually increases your ground clearance. If you'll notice, the bolts sit right there. If you look at the rear ones back there, you'll notice that there is a lot more distance from the bottom of these bolts to the ground right there. So it increases your kind of ground clearance up front. I do plan on doing the rear one. I just don't know if I'm gonna do it now or maybe a year or two down the road. So other packaging that we got done for the front is up here. This is holding the fuse box right now. I need to make like a strap or something like that, or something that bolts on that holds this on. Also, this is the Dirt King washer fluid reservoir right here. I was able to make a bracket. It's not final welded, but that's just a super clean way to mount something that holds your washer fluid. That way you're still able to use that on your windshield at the end of this. So with that, let's get inside the cab here. So as of right now, not a lot has changed with the inside. I mean, depending on where you're starting on this, but we've gotten the whole TE Designs cab cage in. It looks awesome. I love this star that kind of sits in the back. It looks killer. And with that, we still haven't sealed up the holes or anything in here. We did get the dash back in. I don't think I included that in an episode. I think that was too much of just a pain to do, but we have everything all plumbed in, so AC and heater will still work. And in my opinion, I don't see a reason to have a truck like this if you're not gonna have AC and heat. So super exciting, it looks awesome. I do still need to do all the tie-ins up here. I'm gonna tie in right here to the B pillar. And then I also have one more tube I plan on adding in here that's gonna help kind of support the back half of the truck right here. So I kind of have that kind of test fit right there with some painter's tape. So I plan on that kind of coming from right here down to the B pillar of the truck. So that, we can kind of get talking about this whole back section here. So this is a massive difference that we have back here. As many of you guys have watched this was all bought straight from Izzy Fab. This portion from here back, it was all bought as one piece. And sat right here in the side of the garage for a solid amount of time. I could not recommend doing that enough. It saved a huge amount of time. That's so much welding and so much tube placement to get right. Cannot recommend it enough. This is all just put in a jig, it's ready to go, it's perfect the way you buy it. And in my opinion, and how a lot of this turns out, is the more you pay, the less hard you have to work. So also with that, these are the Izzy Fab frame rail kicks. You'll notice because of the shortened wheelbase, I had to clearance the bottom of the cab there, and then the actual cab cage, I had to cut these bottom portions right there to actually match to these rather than the stock frame rails. So a little bit tricky, but we made it work and could not be more thrilled with that. So the other thing I was able to buy, another Izzy Fab product to add to the list, is I was able to buy this Izzy Fab cradle right here. And that way I was able to mount this fuel cell right here in the center. That was another massive time saver, just being able to buy products off the shelf, ready to go, designed around having this Jeep Speed 32-gallon fuel cell. Another Izzy Fab product I can talk about is, this is actually gonna be the fuel pump mounting plate right there. That allows me to actually stay smog legal if I wanted to, but really, I just get to use the stock fuel pump. If something goes wrong with it, I can go down to AutoZone, buy a new one, have it fixed by the end of the day. And I know there's better pumps, and if you're planning on putting out more power, maybe you can go that way, and there's OEM ones you can swap out from Aeromotive that'll fit in that position as well. So it also is a submerged pump that has, in my opinion, a lot less issues because they don't tend to dry out with how much these trucks end up sitting rather than actually getting daily driven. So one of the things, while we're on the topic of the back half of the truck here, that I feel like is very different from my truck compared to others, is it's actually shortened 15 inches in the rear. All these products are designed around being shortened 11 inches in the rear. So I've added a lot of complications, and I do feel like there's a lot of reasoning for that. So for one, These frame kicks had to get clearance around the bottom of the cab there, which was a pain in the butt, but we made it happen. And then also the upper links now, which were designed to be further back, are now, they needed to get clearance around the bottom of the cab there. So with that, I was able to gain as much up travel as I could with these. I do feel like, for one, up travel is the name of the game. When it comes to this, you can have all the droop in the world, but all the performance comes from up travel. That's really what's gonna start soaking things up. So with that being said, talking about the wheelbase. So the biggest reasons to kind of explain right here is when you're talking about, like, say with a dirt bike, anything that's shorter than your wheelbase will cause your front end to drop and cause your back end to buck. So when you're in a truck and you don't have the ability to lean, obviously you have some throttle control, but being set up ideally for all these whoops and jumps and everything, and you don't know what's coming up in the desert, having that pre-set up to sit more on the rear and not want to buck as much is going to cause a much better controlling vehicle. That's why you'll notice things like Rangers, things like Tacomas with these more ideal, closer to 125-inch wheelbase trucks are so much better handling than the quad cab trucks that you'll see. There's plenty of videos out there, and I'm sure we've all seen them, is they go off a jump and they end up going way over and they stuff the front end into the ground. Now the other benefit is, imagine you cut out 15 inches of framework right here and throw that on the scale. That's going to be a massive amount of weight that you get off the entire vehicle there. Imagine cutting 15 inches out of your drive line. That's a solid amount of weight, and anything that you can get off your drive line is massively beneficial. That's a reason that I went with the wheels and tires that I went with, because they are lighter than other options. The less stress you can get on those components, in my opinion, the better. And I feel like it's not a very talked about off-road subject when it comes to the weight of, say, your wheel and tire packages can make a difference of, you know, 135 pounds or 95 pounds. It's 40 pounds per wheel just based off of choice. So massive benefits that I don't feel like a lot of people are talking about. This is probably one of the most basic fundamentals of these, but basically, if you look at where the front tires are going to be and where the rear tires are going to be, and then look at where the driver sits, you're going to sit almost dead center to these, which causes, as the truck is off-roading and you're hitting different stuff, it causes the driver to basically stay on the same axis here to lean forward, lean back. So if you start doing that same thing as the truck's working through everything, instead of the driver sitting in the center, say the driver sits up here, hypothetically, I know you're not sitting on the dash, but it causes the crow's nest effect to where the driver is actually lifting up and dropping and lifting up and dropping with every hit, which causes it to be a much harder vehicle to control. So the closer you can get that driver's seat to the center position of these wheels and tires, the better control that you will have as a driver. So the other advantage you get is actually where your power is going. So as the power comes from the rear end, it actually pushes into the link right here, which actually forces your power in the actual chassis to go to where the link mounts are at, which in my case are going to be right there.
If you draw a line from the tire contact patch to the trailing arm pivot point, this line represents the direction of all the drive force coming from the rear end, as long as this line is in front of the vehicle's center of gravity,
which starts making the truck act and give you more response that you can get out of it through the motor, which is kind of the same idea of trying to increase. You kind of ideally want to get those in front of your center of gravity. In my case, with a front mounted motor, it's going to be very hard to do unless I start throwing serious weight back here. So with that, that also runs to the issue. Again, this is a family Prerunner and it is not a race truck, but I do want to imply the best amount of performance that I can do. So with that being said, I did go mid-cell in here. I feel like this is another highly debated topic. Mid-cell, for one, is not going to put as much weight in the rear end, but in my opinion, I do feel like for the most part, you can get a lot of static weight back here, whether it be jacks, tools, batteries, extra fuel if you really wanted to. I mean, you can throw everything back here and get hundreds of pounds in the back of weight that is not changing and keeping your storage out of the vehicle. So this whole section right here is going to be a massive trunk that sits in here. Izzy Fab makes an insert for it. I may make my own. We will just see how things go. And I've also thought about making it out of stainless to kind of create more weight in the rear of the truck. So if you guys are watching the channel, obviously you probably haven't seen the fuel cell install or these top tubes there, but that's going to be kind of the next section that we go to, because next we're actually going to be getting some new links on here and then throwing the shock towers and bump stops on. So slowly but surely we're getting it. And I know I originally thought this build was going to be about a year. It's probably going to be closer to the 2-year mark. And I think my goal right now is hopefully, I want this truck out. I'm tired. It's exhausting to work on, and I really just want to be done with it. And I'm hoping the Off-Road Expo is that final kind of, it's running and driving into there. So let's see how close we can get to that. And thank you guys for watching. Comment, subscribe, talk it, whatever you want to do. And yeah, I'm gonna keep on getting after it.